Give me a few minutes and I'm gonna show you exactly how you can build $1 million a month sales team. I'm gonna show you the structure, the sales, the marketing, the operations, the overall ecosystem you need to build to hit that number consistently. My name is Yash Kajara and I'm CEO of the Impact Team. And over the past 5 years, I've worked for dozens of companies as a salesperson and as a manager, scaling them up to multi-6 figures to multi-7 figures a month. And my last company was scaled up to $3.5 million a month, where I was the VP of revenue. So in this video, I'm gonna show you exactly how you can do it. Okay, so the first thing with building $1 million a month sales team is understanding what metrics are we playing with in the business to get it there. Okay, now for those of you, I'm gonna sort of break down the different elements of business and the different levels you're gonna be at. And based on those metrics, you're sort of gonna wanna look at them and customize it in your own way. Now, in business, you have a few different levels of business you're gonna go through, okay? And I'm gonna title them 1 through 5, okay? So you have 1, you have 2, you have 3, you have 4, and then you have 5, okay? Now, as you can imagine, number 1 is when you're gonna be doing anywhere from 100K to 200K a month. Okay, every number I'm gonna go over with you guys right now is gonna be cash collected. Okay, second metric you're gonna be at is gonna be anywhere from 250K to about 400K. This is also the number where you are gonna be probably the most profitable. Number 3 is gonna be anywhere from 500K all the way up to 750. Okay, and this is cash collected again. Number 4 is gonna be 750K to 1 mil. Cash collected, and number 5 is when you get to $1 million plus. Now, at every new level in business, you're gonna have different metrics you're dealing with. And so today what we're gonna do is we're gonna talk about sort of the pieces you need of every element, why they need to work, and what do you need to do to make them work. Okay, now, to get a business from 100 to 200K a month, there are a few key components you need, okay? And this is all you need if you're really ever gonna do this. Number 1 is product. When you are a startup and you're sort of trying to find ways to make more income, the first thing you need to focus on is having a really good product that not only can you scale, but there's a UVP. Most products and services out there in high ticket, and a lot of the companies I work for, they didn't have a UVP. Now, what is a UVP? A UVP in simple terms is your unique value proposition. Every company that you've seen that's grown has something that makes them really different, right? That helps them in entering into the market. Look at Amazon, for example. When Amazon entered into the market, what was the key difference? It was the fact that they understood that convenience was valued more than anything. Tony Robbins, perfect example, life coaching done through events. Every great company has a UVP. The issue with most companies is, one, they don't know what the UVP is, which it does affect their marketing, their sales, their overall branding. The second issue is they stick with one UVP for too long, and you have to constantly be adapting your UVPs to make it better. A perfect example of this is Tony Robbins, where Tony Robbins started off with Unleash the Power Within, which was one of his events, but then eventually he created Business Mastery, which was his events, because he realized a lot of entrepreneurs were attracted to his seminars, and if he created an event specifically focused on business, he'd be able to grow his reach and target a bigger demographic. Okay, so the first step is, what is your product or service and what is the UVP? What actually makes you different? Second thing is going to be an acquisition system. The way you generate clients at 100, 200K a month is vastly different than you're going to generate at $1 million a month. However, I want to figure out what works, and I want to double down on what's working that got me to, let's say, 200 grand, and I simply want to optimize that or make that better to get me to step 2 or step 3 or step 4 or step 5. Okay, so second step is you need to think about what is an acquisition system you have, whether it's Facebook ads or it's YouTube ads or it's organic, whatever that metric is of how you're going to build your business. Now, if you're between this ratio where you're doing 100 or 200 a month, or let's pretend you're further than that, whatever the case might be, the best way to build your business initially is going to be organic. And I'll explain you why. Organic gives you the ability to test things without necessarily spending money. The key of business is, how long can I stay alive, right? Because if the business has no money, then we go out of business. And so the ability to use organic as your stream of how you generate traffic will give you the ability to test different angles, figure out what the market wants, and it prevents you from spending money where you don't need to spend money. Third thing is gonna be sales. Okay, to get to 100, 200K a month, you frankly don't need a sales team, and you could probably do it as an individual if you really wanted to. You don't necessarily need to have a team of setters or closers. Now, the issue with a lot of people that they run into, which if you've been in high ticket, you sort of know, where you have all these different ads saying, hire a closer or setter and you can get to 100K a month, is most people don't have step 1 or step 2. So they don't have a product with a good UVP. They don't have a proven acquisition system to actually generate that 100 to 200K a month. That's why they do 100 one month, 50 next month, and they do 175 collected, then 150 collected, right? And so in reality, you have an inconsistent product, an inconsistent acquisition system, and all you do is add in more people to figure that out, which makes no fucking sense. And the issue with adding in more people to a system that doesn't work is now you're reliant on making sure that the people you've hired actually make the income. Because if you collect 175K a month, a setter or closer will only get 5 to 10% of that. And if you have an inconsistent system where 1 month you collect 50, 1 month you collect 75, then you are not in a position to get a setter or closer. But most marketing companies and coaching companies will advertise getting a setter or closer because it simply prevents you as the owner to do, frankly, the work that's necessary. Okay? These 3 steps, if all you did was get a product in your UVP, you understood your acquisition system, and you got really good at sales, or you hired a really good sales that could help you, you could get to 100, 200K a month consistently. Okay? Those are really the 3 necessary steps to get there. Second step. If you're in level 2 now, and let's pretend your business is doing anywhere from 250 to 500K, you need to have a good product, right? But it's a little bit deeper. The biggest thing you'll understand as you hit bigger numbers in business, right? Which in my career, I had multiple opportunities to work under businesses in sales as a manager, is as numbers get bigger, it's less about innovation, it's more about optimization. So a lot of people have a habit of constantly trying to innovate different ways to grow their business rather than optimizing what already works and just getting better at it. And the reason why optimizing is hard is because optimizing requires patience. Optimizing requires not smashing KPI every month, but staying at the same KPI month after month because you're trying to fix the delivery, you're trying to fix the acquisition system, you're trying to fix the sales team, okay? So number 1 from 250 to 400 is your UVP, okay? Now the difference in your UVP with products is you're probably to get to 250 to 400, you're gonna have to have upsells. Now, most people, that makes sense, Yash, I need to have upsells, but what do I need to do now in order to actually get upsells? To get upsells, unfortunately, it's not just about having a really good product. Because if you're at 250 to 400, and if you do more than that, you've probably understood that there is a drop-off rate. So whatever product or service you sell, there's probably a drop-off rate where most customers are not necessarily working with you moving forward. So they usually drop off, you're usually not in touch with them, or they just, they don't want a refund, but they don't necessarily retain. And that doesn't mean you have a bad program, it just means you have a drop-off rate issue. And so I'll give you an example of this, right? We had a program in one of the company's 7th level that I was scaling that, again, we were at 3.5 million a month, and we had a product that was 16K. Now the issue with the 16K offer, which is the highest ticket we sold, was it was a really good product, but it wasn't delivered in a simple enough way that got people results. And as you can imagine, besides having refund and disputes, the issue with that program is people went through the program, but they had no interest in retaining, right? Retention, so staying with the program or like signing up again in renewals, but they also had no interest in upselling because they got mediocre results because the product wasn't bad, but it wasn't delivered correctly. And so if you can imagine for a business that does 3.5 million a month, if we could have fixed that, which we did fix a little bit of it, I was able to fix a little bit of it before I left, but that could have probably added in an extra 20% of revenue. And so if you're in between 250 to 400, I highly recommend you figure out what the drop-off rate is in order to increase your upsells, because if you can fix that one metric of every 10 people you sell, because at 250 to 400, you're consistent with an acquisition system. Yeah, your ROAS might not be the greatest, your cost per acquisition might not be the best, but your constant focus from 250 to 400 is LTV. Because if you can increase your LTV, you can spend more in marketing, you can increase your ROAS through that, and overall you'll run a much better business where if you're probably hiring reps at this point, you can keep them filled up and you can focus on creating a pipeline, okay? So first step, at 250 to 400 is your UVP, but then you need to look at upsells. The best way to identify your upsells is what is my drop-off rate. Okay, so DR, what's my drop-off rate? Now, second step is gonna be acquisition system. Now, it's gonna depend on whether you're doing organic or paid, but ideally when you're at 250 to 400, I strongly recommend you have an organic stream, right? And you have a paid stream. So you don't want to constantly innovate acquisition systems, which means let's pretend 70% of your acquisition system in business comes in through paid marketing. The key isn't, let's say you run a VSL ad. The key isn't that I'm going to go from a VSL ad to a lead magnet ad. That's not what I'm saying. The key is that you keep your acquisition model the same, but then you start adding in streams of organic to help yourself with hedging ad spend, but you add in a bit of organic so that you can start creating a bit of a brand. Because if you're going to go from 250 to 400 and you're going to get that to 750 or a million, you do not under any circumstance want to be over leveraged on ads. This is one thing most people fall into the trap of, is they're really good at paid marketing, and so all they do is spend a shit ton of money in marketing to increase their ROAS. And you can make a lot of revenue through that. You're not going to achieve a lot of profit. And so your gross profit is going to be far lower if all you do is spend money on leads to acquire your clients. That's not the business you want to be in. You want to get to a point where 50% of your revenue comes in through organic and through paid. Again, why do people usually not do that? Because common sense, that makes sense, but why don't people do it? Two things. They're impatient, so they're always trying to grow the business rather than fixing the issues. The second thing is they just don't know how to do it. And it's far harder to, let's say, fix organic if you're over leveraged on ads than it is to necessarily be patient and say, okay, I'm going to fix both. Now, third step is going to be sales team. At 250 to 400, you're probably going to have a team of like 5 to I'd say 7 people realistically. And you always want to have I always believe in having a more lean team. So some people will have like 10 to 15 reps for like a 400K a month business. That's stupid, right? It depends on how many leads are coming in. But third step, I'm going to put it in little letters here, is going to be sales. Okay. But now you go from just needing sales to sales ops, which is going to mean what is your operations, your sales ops on the back end, and how you're going to be managing it. So if I have a team of like 5 to 7 people, I probably need a fractional manager. I don't need a full-time manager for a team of 5. I frankly don't, right? So ideally what you want to do if you're at 250 to 400, and this is where, again, like leadership is everything. If let's say I have a team of like 5 people, I ideally want the top sales guy or whoever the best leader is, which sometimes is the top sales guy, sometimes it isn't. So you want to be careful on this, but you sort of want to take the top sales guy or the top leader of the company and the sales team, make him a fractional manager where he spends, let's say on average 10 hours a week looking at the data, managing the team. Because at 250 to 400, you have time as the owner to focus on the business. And if you say otherwise, that's bullshit. You can easily manage the numbers of the business. And 250 to 400, really your full-time job besides ramping up marketing and getting more leads and more sales is really making sure the finances of the companies are taken care of. And so sort of the way I recommend people do it is like, if I have a team of like, let's say 5 people, I'm going to take one of the guys that's, promising leader that people sort of look up to in the company. I'll make him a fractional manager where his job is going to be running, let's say, daily meetings with the sales team, right? So Monday through Friday, he runs a 15-minute daily huddle. His job is going to be taking out, let's say, 4 hours a week for one-on-one calls with the sales team. Okay. And so if you look at it on average, a fractional manager is probably going to spend on average, you're looking at, let's say 8 hours a week in managing the actual sales team. Your job as the owner or the founder is going to be managing the data, right? Making sure the data sheets are put together. And then you have the manager enforce the data sheets getting filled out, the follow-ups getting done, the referrals getting done. The best way to motivate a sales team is lead by example. And so if you can have the top guy or the leader that people look up to in the sales team enforce the rules and the processes you want implemented, it's far better for the guy who's leading it that has the buy-in from the sales team to kind of enforce those, rather than you as the founder who's making all this money, who the sales team obviously enjoy, but they probably respect the guy who's actually backing it up a little bit more. It also puts you in a position where there's a lot more internal leadership and internal sort of like competition between the reps to want to be the best guy. And so you can get somebody who's fractional, who's already in your team that can take that responsibility. Okay, so that's 250 to 400. Now, another thing you want to be careful of when you're getting to like 250 to 400, I'm going to put it in kind of writing right over here, is going to be finance. Okay, so I'll just call it F, finance. Now, when you're getting to numbers like this, the biggest thing you want to optimize for is really figuring out what are you going to do from a business standpoint to make sure that you can grow this. So if you are trying to get to $1 million a month and you want to get the sales team set up, you're going to have some costs that are going to be necessary to grow the team. So if I'm at 250 to 400 grand a month, I'm probably going to want to have twice a year an in-person retreat with me and the sales team, right? I probably have to set myself up properly for taxes and accounting. And so finance is one of the things that I think gets overlooked sometimes, where if you have the UVP, you have a good upsell ratio, which increases your LTV. You have a proven acquisition system that you feel very comfortable with, and your sales operations is good. The next step from there is you really need to optimize for taxes and make sure you can save as much money as humanly possible. And you need to start making investments that are both revenue generating, right? So you have revenue plus, but then you need to have some that are culture generating. So culture plus, right? And some of that might look like maybe you invest into PR. Maybe you invest into getting a retreat every quarter with you and the sales team, right? Maybe you're investing in an in-person event with all of your clients where you're going to upsell them a 25K program. I don't know, right? But depending on the business you're in, you really want to optimize for finance. And the 2 finance metrics that I was taught that you want to look at is revenue increaser and then culture increaser. Those are the 2 metrics you look at this revenue mark. Now, going on to point number 3, which is going to be 500 to 750. 500 to 750 is usually and usually below 650, 600 and below, I'd say 650 and below. This is going to be the most profitable. This is when your profitability is usually through the roof. This is when the world is perfect, right? So world is perfect. So this is the point in business where you are going to be the most profitable and the world is perfect. Like nothing can stop you. You're 500 to 750 a month collected, like you are on fire, okay? And so if you can imagine 500 to 750, there's really a decision you got to make, I think more than anything. And the decision needs to be this. If you are going to get to $1 million, $1.5 million a month, you have to understand that you will probably make less profit at $1 million a month or $1.5 million a month than you will at 500. You'll make more money at $1 million a month because you have more revenue. So like even though the margins will go lower, your gross profit will go lower, you'll still end up making more. But 500 to 750 is usually a healthy metric where you can make enough money to live a pretty good life. As long as you've done this shit leading up to it, right? If you've done step 1, step 2, you have a good LTV, your acquisition system is proven and everything. 500 to 750 is really the metric where the decision is, do I scale and I have more problems as I grow this business, which will happen, but I'll make a bigger impact, I'll make more revenue, or is it, do I stay here, or do I just make a lot of cash? And so, you know, if let's say you're a founder of a company right now, you're hitting these metrics, but let's pretend you only have, let's say, 250 grand in your bank account or in your savings or retirement plan. If I was you, I would spend time here building up this, be okay with hitting these numbers consistently for 6 to 7 months so you can take more money out of the business to make sure you're financially taken care of. So you want to make decisions differently. 500 to 750 though, a lot of it is going to be 1, 2, and 3, right? So you're going to focus a lot on, you know, your UVP to upsells. You're going to focus on your acquisition system, organic and paid. Number 3 is going to be sales ops. However, 500 to 750 now, it's going to require, and this is like, I would say the key difference with any business I've been a part of, right? The biggest thing that it requires and the biggest outcome and result you're going to get is your payroll is about to increase. So when you're getting to these metrics, 500 to 750, because you probably have a team of like 10 to 20 people at this point, right? You will need to hire a full-time manager. All right, so there's a full-time manager. You're probably gonna need somebody to handle the marketing. So you'll probably need like a VP of marketing, right? You're probably gonna need a legal team, right? Especially if you're gonna scale further, right? And what I mean by legal team is you're probably not gonna be okay with just your legal counselor that, you know, your family legal counselor, which you've used for the past 10 years. If you're trying to scale past this number, you do need to hire a better legal team and a better accounting team because it is a different level of business, especially 500 to $1 million or $1.5 million. Now, if you already started with a really good team initially, maybe you don't need to hire more. But most people hire a very basic team because again, business is unpredictable. And even to get to this metric right here on a monthly basis is incredible. And so you really want to look at the people you've hired. And so you're going to need a full-time sales manager, right? You're going to need a VP of marketing. You're going to need a legal team, okay? And so you're probably going to need to add people in delivery. Right, so the delivery department is going to probably require a lot more people that you need to add. So your payroll, the ultimate thing that's going to go up for you when it comes to like 500 to 750 and further is your payroll. Your payroll is about to go up because you're going to have to hire a lot more positions to sustain the beast you've created now. And that's not a bad thing if you can hire good people, but an example for a full-time manager, if you really want a good sales manager for a sales team and you have 10 to 20 reps, that's probably a 10 to 15K a month salary, right? So that's 180 grand a year. And just that salary alone. A VP of marketing, you're looking at about the same, 150 to 200 for like a really good one. If you get like a basic one, 100 to 120. Delivery team depends on how you've set up your delivery systems and the mechanism of how you're delivering the product, but you're probably looking on average another 10 to 20 grand a month to sustain the amount of clientele you're bringing in. And so the point I'm trying to make is like, if you want to get to $1 million a month, you totally can. Most people just don't understand the challenges and the sacrifices you have to make to get there. You have to remember one thing, with all the payroll you've added in, those are fixed costs, which means if there's certain months you hit KPI or you don't, or the ROAS goes up, it doesn't mean you don't pay these people. You still have to pay these people. Okay, cool. But let's pretend you're ready to make that sacrifice. Step 4 comes into place, which is this. Step 1, 2, 3, I need all of this. My payroll is heavier, okay? 750 to 1 million, a lot of what it's about is gonna be a game, and this is something people fuck up, in my opinion, and it's a game of profitability. So a lot of people, when they're getting to 750 to $1 million, and I think like we made this mistake at 7th as well, when you're getting to 750 to $1 million, the game you're sort of playing is really profit, which means like you have, you know, the right product, the UVP, you have a good acquisition system clearly to get to those metrics. Your paid and organic is nailed, sales are good, everything's on point. But now it always comes down to profit, which, believe it or not, if you've done everything up to this point correctly, your profit will be in the positive. You're good. What people mess up on is they don't do these steps correctly, so by the time they get to this metric, some part of their business is fucked. The most common thing people fuck up is delivery and marketing. So their delivery mechanism wasn't set up correctly. They don't have a UVP. And so now that they're trying to scale up marketing, the issue is because they didn't create their UVP or something that makes them different in the marketplace, now they're competing against the bigger dogs. Because at 100 or 200K a month, you could do that just by posting clips on Instagram and getting a good amount of views. To get to $1 million, you're dealing with a different type of business, a different level. And so if your UVP isn't changing, it fucks you up. And so I'll give you an example at 7th, right? Just because it'll put it into perspective, right? So 7th level was a sales training company that I was a part of, VP of revenue. I was managing the whole company for about 6 to 7 months before I left. And the UVP of 7th with our former CEO, Matt, was script writing. So we were the first sales training company in kind of the industry that did script writing. And every year that went by, it was always script writing, script writing, script writing. Now, as you can imagine, as the market adapted and the market got used to that UVP, that unique value proposition, it got old, it got boring. But what we didn't end up doing is we didn't change the UVP. So pillar one, what got us to like 100 to 200, got us to 250 to 400, got us to 500 to 750, and then eventually got us to 1 million, we stopped changing that. The UVP was always scripting, scripting, scripting. And so the market didn't accept anything different from us, which is why the profit tanked, because people stopped purchasing because they knew what we offered. Another perfect example, acquisition system. Most of the traffic back then was coming in through organic and paid. It was about 60-40, 60% paid marketing, 40% organic. What did we mess up on? We kept over and over spending on paid, which meant by the time we got to 1 million, we didn't take much profit home because we had overspent. Even when we got to 3 million, right? So at $1 million, when we had done it correctly, where half of it was paid, half of it was organic through Austin, who was our head of content back then, and it worked really well, we were profitable. When we started over leveraging ourselves on paid marketing and we got to 3.5 million a month, we weren't making a lot of money. Our margins tanked. And the point I'm trying to make to you is this. These 3 pillars of really what I've shared here, including product, acquisition system, sales operations. It's something you have to be constantly optimizing for. It's not something you do for a week or a month or a year and then you stop, okay? If you're gonna go from 100, 200 to 250 to 400, great. Again, it's the same principle and the same formula. You have to optimize it and you have to make it better. If I'm gonna go from 500 to 750, it's the same principles. I have to optimize it and make it better. And for 500 to 750, the reason my payroll goes up is now I need people managing this. I need a head of delivery to manage the product and the upsells. I need somebody to manage the acquisition system to make sure we're consistently getting an opportunity. I need somebody to manage the sales operations to make sure that like my team is fulfilling at all ends. Okay, every payroll position from 500 to 750 does have a KPI. My delivery department, my VP of delivery, his KPI is how many upsells do we get on a monthly basis. 30% of all of our clients in the mid ticket should get to the high ticket. My KPI for my VP of marketing is the acquisition system. 50% should be organic, 50% should be paid. Depending on your business, this should be my cost of acquisition. My metric of success and KPI for my sales manager is going to be making sure the sales team has a certain close rate, certain cash collection. So payroll gets higher at level 3 here. But if you've already enforced the standards of your company up to this point, then if anything, when you get these people involved, it only does better. And so 750 to 1 million, the key metrics to get there are very similar as step 3. The only thing you want to optimize for is profit. And you really want to make sure profitability is where it needs to be. And at $1 million, depending on how you run your company, your margins are going to be less than pillar 3. And so that means at level 3, you are going to take more money from the business. Right? Your margins will probably be way higher than it will be at, let's say, $1 million, especially with all these costs you've now added into your business. But if you have a vision and why you're doing it and what you want to do, then it's the right thing to do. If you're somebody that's running a business right now and you're in pillar 1, 2, level 3, level 4, regardless of what area you're at in business, and you would like to get a personalized audit where we can come into your business and show you how we can help, down below there's going to be a link where you can book in a free audit call with me and my business partner, Austin, where we'll look at all these metrics in your business, give you a custom plan, and potentially work with you. Subscribe to the channel, and I'll see you on the next video.